the accusation of hypocrisy seems to centre on the fact that we're doing something here, but we're not doing something in Bahrain. Is your contention then, do something everywhere or do something nowhere at all?
Examine our policies towards the whole region, examine our arms sales policy, examine our trade agreements, and examine the complete non-implementation of the human rights clauses of the European trade agreements. At this moment, people are dying in Bahrain at the hands of British weapons supplied to Saudi Arabia and the Bahrain government. At this moment, people are dying in Yemen from the same process. It's time we grew up and realised what we're doing to the region.
But just to get back to the Libyan question, we heard very clearly Colonel Gaddafi threaten the people of Benghazi, saying we will go house to house and we will show no mercy. Was the international community meant to sit on their hands and watch the undoubtedly resulting bloodshed unfold?
What the UN resolution calls for is a diplomatic intervention and calls for a no-fly zone. Within 24 hours that being passed, there'd been very little, if any, attempts at bringing about some kind of ceasefire that meant anything. I wish they could have tried that road first, because I just feel that we're going to end up with, as the question was put by Andrew a short time ago, a divided Libya into a vassal state in the east and a pariah state in the west.
Bernard Jenkin, is this actually regime change by the back door?
Well, I think the government has got to make it clear what its political objective is. Clearly there's an aspiration for Gaddafi to go, but really they've got to make it clear and divorce that from the military purpose they're about. Otherwise there will be a misalignment between the political objectives and the UN Security Council resolution and what we will allow our armed forces to do, and that way lies confusion.
The resolution says that the people must be protected. Can it be argued within the realms of that resolution then that to protect the people you need to remove Gaddafi because he's always going to be a threat to the people?
Well, I think that very much depends upon the consensus of the coalition, and that includes the Arab League and the Arab states. If the Arab states are all prepared to say, let's get rid of Gaddafi, well then I think there is political support and potentially legal support for that objective. But at the moment, that may be an aspiration as expressed by the Prime Minister and indeed President Obama and others, but that's not part of the military operation. And that has to be made explicitly clear that removing Gaddafi is not the end state we are seeking to achieve by this military action.
There seems to be a lack of clarity, though, within David Cameron's own cabinet, with Liam Fox saying one thing and William Hague saying quite another about Gaddafi's
I do think
future.
that we need to remember some lessons from some previous conflicts. Part of the success of the Balkans conflict, though it took some time to get there, was that Jamie Shea at NATO headquarters and Alistair Campbell constructed a very, very clear narrative about what this was about, very, very clear messaging. With the construction of a military headquarters that may not be there yet, we need a political headquarters for this conflict in order to get the same kind of clarity.
This has been described as not Iraq on so many occasions, people pointing towards the involvement of the Arab League in this coalition. Does that not allay some of your fears that actually there are Arab countries taking part, Arab countries giving their support?
Well, I think we have to just deconstruct slightly the Arab League at the present time. Egypt and Tunisia are prominent members of the Arab League. Their representatives are there for a very short time because they've both got elections coming up. Every other Arab leader is under pressure from democratic protests all across their countries. I think they are supporting this out of desperation. Then today, only today, they're starting to peel away from it, and India has called for a ceasefire.
How many people feel the way you do in this House?
I've no idea, we'll find out later, but I would have thought there's quite a lot of MPs will have listened to constituents over the weekend who may not go the whole way one way or the other, but would be very concerned that we have a great deal of money to spend on this conflict and it appears to be developing into an open-ended commitment.
And Bernard Jenkin, do you have any idea what the shape of the House is at the moment when it comes to this question?
There can be little doubt that this motion will be heavily carried, very clearly and strongly carried. But the House of Commons needs to be aware of the ambiguities in the government's present position and the potential for confusion and mission creep. And I think the government's got to make it clear what the political objective of this military action is. And if it's not about getting rid of Gaddafi, then stop saying it.
Okay, just very briefly, finally, Jeremy Corbyn, was there anything that anyone could ever say to make you think military intervention on any level at any time is the right thing to do?
I'm not in favour of military intervention. Too many people are dying in too many wars and too much money is wasted on them.
Okay.
Look at human rights and poverty first.
All right,
we need
gentlemen.
to go and fight wars to keep peace.
We are